The lake shimmered under the afternoon sun. Its still water breaking only where the wind brushed gentle ripples across its surface. To me, it was home, peaceful, inherited, and mine in every legal sense. To Karen, however, it was apparently her kingdom. I'd just finished easing my new houseboat down the ramp, proud as hell of the floating beauty I'd spent 6 months restoring. She was a modern marvel of cedar and steel, ready to rest on the same water where my granddad once fished every Sunday. It was supposed to be a quiet moment, a small celebration of legacy and peace. Then I heard it. "Excuse me?" The voice shot through the wind like a siren, sharp, nasal, and angry. "You can't park that thing here." I looked up to see her, a short, blonde woman marching toward me in a sun visor and a crisp white shirt that screamed HOA President. A clipboard in her hand, she waved it like a sword of authority. "This is HOA property," she barked, her words echoing over the water. "You're violating community regulations by launching here." I blinked at her, half amused. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my tone calm, "this lake is on my ranch. Private property. Always has been." She let out a laugh, the kind that drips arrogance. "Nice try. This water is under HOA jurisdiction. See that sign?" She pointed across the road, where a faded HOA board leaned against a fence on her side of the property line. I smiled slowly. "You see that other sign?" I asked, pointing to the wooden post at the gate behind me, the one my grandfather carved himself. "Wilson Ranch, private property, established 1954, Her face twitched. But instead of backing down, she doubled her grip on the clipboard. "We have shared water access," she said, her voice turning shrill. "You can't just claim it's yours because you say it is." I could feel the heat of irritation building under my skin, but I held it in. "Ma'am, I've got deeds, maps, and 3 generations of Wilson ownership to prove it. You might want to check before I'll call the cops," she snapped. "You're trespassing on HOA land." And with that, she pulled out her phone, stabbing at the screen with fury. 5 minutes later, the quiet lakefront became a scene out of a small-town soap opera. 2 patrol cars rumbled down the dusty road. Lights flickering even though there was no emergency, Karen strutted toward them like she'd summoned the cavalry. "Officers," she said dramatically, pointing toward me. "That man is invading HOA property with his boat." One of the deputies, a younger guy with mirrored sunglasses, turned to me, clearly unsure what to make of this. "Sir, do you live here?" "Yep," I said, leaning against my truck. "Own the land too?" "Everything inside that fence line, including the lake." "You can check the county map if you want," Karen scoffed. "He's bluffing. This lake is community managed. The HOA board approved it years ago." "Approved what?" I asked. "My granddad owned this place before the HOA even existed." The officer nodded and took my folder, the one I kept in the glove box just in case. He stepped aside, typing on his tablet, while Karen glared at me like I'd personally offended her ancestors. "You're wasting your time," she said with a smirk. "Our boundary records are updated every quarter." "He's lying." I crossed my arms. "Well, then this'll be awkward." A few minutes passed in tense silence. Karen kept pacing, muttering things under her breath, while I watched the sun glint off the water my family had fished, swam, and lived beside for decades. Finally, the officer returned. His face had changed, calm but firm. "Ma'am," he said, "according to county records, this land and the lake are part of Wilson Ranch. The HOA boundary ends about half a mile east." Her jaw fell open. "That's impossible." "Our maps, our files are wrong," I said gently. "Might want to update them." Karen's face turned red. But before she could explode again, I added, "Tell you what, while you're checking those maps, maybe look up who owns your marina down the road." She frowned, thrown off. "Our marina?" I smiled, just a hint of mischief curling at my lips. "Yeah, the one your HOA manages. You might want to see whose name's on the deed now." "What are you talking about?" she demanded. I didn't answer. I just looked out over the lake as the sunlight danced off the water, pretending to admire my houseboat. Inside, I was counting down the minutes, because exactly 7 minutes before she called those cops, I had signed a purchase agreement at the county auction for the entire marina she thought she owned. The sun dipped lower, bleeding gold into the lake's surface, as if even the sky wanted front-row seats to the drama. Karen stood near the patrol cars, her arms crossed, lips tight enough to slice through concrete. The two officers exchanged glances, the kind that said, "Here we go again, sir." The younger one said, glancing at his partner before turning back to me, "Mind if I take a quick look at those ownership papers?" "Not at all," I replied, handing him the folder. "You'll find every deed, tax receipt, and county map in there." Karen laughed loudly, that sharp performative laugh only people who love control can produce. "Don't bother," she said. "I'm the HOA president. We've got jurisdiction over the entire shoreline." "He's bluffing." The officer gave her a polite nod, then stepped aside, scrolling on his tablet as he cross-checked my records with the county database. Karen took that as her cue to grandstand. "You know what this is?" she said, pointing dramatically toward me. "Entitlement. People like him think they can ignore community law because they have money or land." I stayed silent, letting her rant echo across the water. The irony was almost poetic. She was accusing me of the very arrogance she lived by. The second officer, an older man with sun-leathered skin, finally spoke. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "how long has your HOA existed?" "Since 1998, she said proudly. "We've maintained this lake since 1998, he repeated. "And Wilson Ranch has been registered since 1954. That means this property predates your HOA by over 40 years. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She turned red, clutching her clipboard like a life raft. "That can't be right. Our records are wrong," I said again, softly this time. The young officer returned with his tablet. "County confirms it. The entire area within that fence line, including the water body, falls under Wilson Ranch. The HOA's jurisdiction ends just past the oak tree down the road." Karen's face twitched. "No, that's a mistake. You must be reading the wrong file." "Ma'am," the officer said, his tone flat now, "I'm reading it directly from the county assessor's database." For a moment there was silence, that heavy kind of silence where you can hear a person's pride cracking. Karen tried to recover. "Well," she said stiffly, "even if that's true, there are shared easement rights. Community members are allowed to access—" "No, ma'am," I interrupted gently. "That was revoked in 2008 when the HOA lost its petition for shared access after flooding complaints. The record's public. You can look it up." The older cop gave a low whistle, clearly amused. Karen's face went pale. I could almost feel her ego fighting for survival, clawing at whatever justification it could find. She pulled out her phone again, fingers trembling slightly this time. "I'm recording this," she declared. "This man is harassing me and lying to law enforcement." I smiled faintly and pointed at the camera mounted on my houseboat. "Keep filming, Karen. My camera's already streaming to the sheriff's office. Audio and all." Her expression faltered. "What do you mean streaming?" Before I could answer, the sound of crunching gravel echoed down the road. A black SUV rolled into view, dust swirling behind it like smoke. It stopped beside the patrol cars, and when the door opened, out stepped Sheriff Daniels, broad-shouldered, gray-bearded, and unmistakably calm. Karen's relief was instant. "Sheriff," she said, rushing toward him. "Thank God you're here. This man is breaking HOA rules, launching unauthorized afternoon." "Karen," Daniels interrupted, removing his hat. "Heard there was some commotion about property lines again." His tone had that seasoned patience of someone who'd seen too many of these disputes before breakfast. "Again?" I said with a grin. "Guess she's made this a hobby." Karen glared at me. "This is serious, Sheriff. He's violating HOA regulations." Daniels looked around, his eyes tracing the fence posts, the signs, the water line, calm, deliberate. Then he turned to me. "Mind if I see your paperwork, son?" I handed him the same folder the deputies had already checked. He flipped through it slowly, his eyes pausing at the deed's notarized seal. When he looked up, he was smiling. "Karen," he said, his voice steady as the lake breeze, "you might want to stand down. This land, the dock, the lake, all of it, belongs to the Wilson Ranch. Always has." She blinked rapidly, her confidence faltering for the first time. That can't be true. The HOA manages the road access to the community park. Not this property, Daniels said firmly. You're on private land right now, ma'am. You're the trespasser here. The words hit her like stones. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, just a strangled half-breath. The deputies shifted uncomfortably, clearly trying not to laugh. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost Karen finally found her voice. This isn't over, she said, pointing at me. We'll challenge it. I'll have the HOA board on this by morning. Good, I said softly. While you're at it, maybe check who owns your marina down the road. She froze. What? Your marina, I repeated, stepping closer so she could see the amusement in my eyes. You might want to verify whose name's on the title now. What are you talking about? I just smiled, watching her confusion twist into dread. Let's just say you should have paid your property taxes on time. Before she could respond, Sheriff Daniels' phone buzzed. He answered, listened for a few seconds, then turned the screen toward her. County Registrar just confirmed something, he said. Looks like the Wilson Ranch now owns the marina as of this morning. The color drained from her face like water leaking from a cracked glass. That's impossible, she whispered. Guess not, the sheriff said with a shrug. Karen's mouth trembled. You can't just buy it. That's illegal. No, I said, voice calm as the lake. It's legal. The HOA didn't pay back taxes for 3 years. The marina went up for county auction. I placed the winning bid. She stepped back, shaking her head. You planned this. Not exactly, I said, looking out at the setting sun. Let's just call it poetic timing. For the first time that day, Karen didn't have a comeback. The sheriff tipped his hat toward me and said, well, looks like the lake's finally back where it belongs. Karen turned away, her eyes glassy. Her once perfect posture crumbling under the weight of her own arrogance, but even as she walked off toward her SUV, I knew this wasn't over. People like her never surrender quietly. They come back swinging, and when they do, you'd better be ready. I watched her drive off, dust cloud rising behind her, and whispered to myself, 7 minutes was all it took. The sun was nearly gone, painting the horizon in molten orange as the last light flickered across the water. Karen's SUV sat idling near the dirt road, engine rumbling like her anger. The sheriff's truck lights glowed faintly. The scene bathed in a strange calm, the kind that comes right after a storm tears through. For a moment, I almost thought she'd just drive away. But people like Karen don't walk off quietly. They combust. She swung her door open and marched back toward us, her phone gripped tight, recording again. This man is a fraud, she yelled, her voice trembling between fury and fear. He's lying to the police. He's manipulating county records. I didn't even move. Keep filming, I said, pointing again to the houseboat camera. My footage is streaming live to the sheriff's office. Every word, every threat, all recorded. It stopped her cold. Her phone faltered midair. What do you mean live feed? She asked, voice dropping. Before I could answer, another pair of headlights appeared on the road, sleek, black, and deliberate. A government-issue SUV rolled to a stop beside the sheriff's truck. 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark suits and carrying leather folders. Karen's expression changed from defiance to confusion. Who are they? She demanded. The older man flashed a badge. County Fraud Investigation Unit, ma'am, he said, calm as a surgeon before an incision. We've been reviewing HOA financial activity for the past 6 months. Karen blinked, lost. What does that have to do with me? The sheriff crossed his arms. Everything, he said. The investigator flipped open his file. Inside were printed bank statements, highlighted lines, and photocopies of transactions. According to our audit, he began, HOA funds have been used for several personal expenses, vacations, home renovations, vehicle leases, all authorized by your signature. That's not true, Karen snapped. Those were community projects. The second investigator spoke for the first time, his tone colder. Community projects don't usually include spa retreats in Maui or payments to a jewelry store. The color drained from her face. No, she stammered. That's taken out of context, the sheriff cut in, voice steady. Save it for court, Karen.
Alex.
The only sound was the soft lapping of lake water against the dock. Karen's perfect composure shattered like thin glass. Her lip quivered as she took a shaky step back. You have no right actually, the investigator said. We have a warrant. He nodded toward one of the deputies, who stepped forward. Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us for questioning. Karen froze. You can't arrest me. No one's arresting you, the sheriff said gently. Not yet. But you're under investigation for embezzlement and misappropriation of HOA funds. Her knees wobbled. She tried to steady herself with that damn clipboard. But even that betrayed her, slipping from her fingers and clattering to the dock. Papers scattered like broken pride. The officers moved closer. Guiding her toward the SUV, she resisted at first, jerking her arm away. You don't understand, she cried. He planned this. He's behind all of this. I met her eyes, calm as ever. No, Karen, I said softly. You did this yourself. She glared at me, eyes wide with hatred and disbelief. You ruined everything. I shook my head. No, I just owned what was already mine. The investigators led her to their car. The sheriff watched quietly, his jaw tight, his eyes tired. When the door finally shut and the SUV pulled away, the sound of tires on gravel faded into the stillness of dusk. Then the quietest thing happened. Applause. Soft, hesitant at first. Coming from behind the patrol cars, I turned to see a few HOA members standing there, hands half clapping, unsure if they should. An older man, maybe in his 70s, stepped forward. So, it's true then. You bought the Marina? I nodded. Legally transferred this morning. County auction closed at 9 a.m. He let out a low whistle. Guess she never mentioned the tax debt. Another woman folded her arms, looking more weary than angry. Karen told us the HOA owned this whole lake, she said, that we had rights here. She made us pay maintenance fees every year. Then I suppose, I said with a faint smile, you've been paying for something that was never hers to sell. They murmured among themselves, guilt mixing with disbelief. One younger guy laughed nervously. So what now? You gonna kick us out of the Marina? I shook my head. No need for that. You can still use it as long as you respect the rules. What rules? He asked cautiously. Simple ones, I said, glancing out at the water. Treat people decently, pay fair, and stop letting power blind you. The crowd went quiet again. A few nodded. The older man extended his hand, rough and honest. Fair enough, he said. I shook it, feeling some of the tension lift off my shoulders. The sheriff chuckled. Well, he said, putting his hat back on, looks like the lake's finally in good hands again. We stood there for a moment, watching the sun dip completely below the horizon. The water reflected a deep crimson now, still and beautiful. I walked back to my houseboat, stepping onto the deck. The boards creaked gently under my boots, the air thick with that sweet mix of wood, fuel, freedom. Granddad used to tell me that land didn't make a man powerful, it just revealed who he really was. I never fully understood that until now. As I leaned on the railing, the reflection of the last golden light shimmered across the water like a promise, quiet, steady, eternal. Behind me, the sheriff called out. You planning to stay out here tonight? Yeah, I said. Think I'll let the lake keep me company for a while. He nodded, tipped his hat, and drove off. The others followed, leaving the ranch road empty once again. For the first time all day, there was peace. Real, untouched peace. The crickets began their evening song. The wind whispered through the reeds, and my houseboat rocked gently like the rhythm of a heartbeat. I took one last look toward the marina in the distance, my marina now, its lights glimmering faintly under the rising moon. Funny, I whispered to myself. 7 minutes and a lifetime apart. I smiled. Justice didn't always come fast, but when it did, it was beautiful.